I yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts, Congressman Turney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Liddy, for being here with us today. Let me ask you, about November of 2008, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York established Maiden Lane 3 financing agency. And correct me if I'm wrong, it was that agency that provided the money for AIG to then go out and purchase some of the underlying subprime securities?
Yes.
About $27 billion, a little more than $27 billion.
Yes.
Now, you did that and then you canceled the contracts that you had with those counterparties, am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Would you provide copies of those contracts to this committee?
The Federal Reserve would have to do that because the Federal Reserve did that. So let me just explain. While we were the counterparty, we would fight tooth and nail with them. Once the Federal Reserve decided that we would put money into a financing entity, a special purpose vehicle, then the Federal Reserve took over the responsibility for the negotiation of those settlements and the cancellation of the contracts. They would have to provide those. So they kind of took them all.
All right, thank you. The special purpose entity, explain to me how that was structured.
AIG put in the equity. AIG sold the assets, the underlying assets, at some cents on the dollar. I don't remember the exact number, 45 or 50 or 50.
To raise the equity?
No, the equity came from money that the U.S. Treasury had provided us. But then we sold the assets, and the sale of those assets went into Maiden Lane 3.
So I'm just trying to learn here. So the sale of the assets were the subprime instruments?
It was the underlying assets that were valued at, as I said, 45 or 50 cents on the dollar. The Federal Reserve then bought them, and that money went into the funding of Maiden Lane 3.
Right. The reports are that you paid full value for the subprime securities. Is that accurate?
Again, the Federal Reserve did that.
They paid full value.
Yeah, the Federal Reserve did that. In fact, we don't even know what they did because we were out of that process.
Okay. Before that all happened, AIG had been having serious collateral disputes with Goldman Sachs over certain values involved in their portfolios, correct?
Oh, it was any counterparty, not just Goldman Sachs. It was any counterparty. It gets to the root of mark to market. You and I can look at the same set of facts, and you can think it has one value, I can think it has another.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, we would need to go and get those contracts from the Fed. The question here, Mr. Liddy, obviously is why we paid full value when there were legitimate disputes as to the value on that, why we didn't negotiate a better arrangement on that. And you're telling us that it's the Fed we should speak to, not you, because you weren't involved in that.
Yes, we were asked to step aside once those financing vehicles were set up, and I believe the Federal Reserve had the responsibility for those.
Okay. Now, Mr. Kanjorski asked you a question about regulation going forward, and you answered on that. Why wouldn't we favor some sort of a regulatory system that disallowed entities like this from getting too large and too diverse, as opposed to just having somebody oversee them and sort of watch over them? Why would we go back to something on the nature of Glass-Steagall or that type of operation where we just simply say you can't get that diverse and that large? Do you want to comment on that?
You know, I would. I'm not so sure it's the issue of large. It's a matter of breadth. So if you're in one product line and you're really muscular in it and you're very good at it and you know it, that's one thing. But if you're in 20 different product lines and that's the definition of large, that seems to me to have a different level of risk. So I think it's probably the center point for a debate that ought to occur. I just don't think a situation where an AIG, really a premier insurance company, should have a financial products business attached to it.
Thank you for that. You had another $43.7 billion between September of 2008 and December of 2008 that was from the public that you used to satisfy financial counterparties with respect to the securities lending operations of AIG. Were there any negotiations involved in those payments, or were they contractually obligated for the amount that you paid?
No, that's a whole different situation. It's where we have to pay $1 back to somebody who's got our assets. If we want our assets back, we've got to give them $1. But the investments we had invested our dollar in had declined, so it's a much different situation than a credit default swap.
All right. Would you be able to make those contracts available?
I assume if I will ask our general counsel, and I'm always worried about who's on the other end, and did we sign a confidentiality agreement that we won't make anything available. If you'll give us the time to research whether we can do that, we'll come right back to you.
We'll do it. Thank you. Yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. The gentleman yields. Gentleman from Arizona, Congressman Flake.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir Liddy, can you tell us what the administration's plans are moving forward with AIG?
I cannot. I don't have any idea. I know what my, I think I know what my marching orders are, and that is to run the company as well as we can, and in a way that is responsible. It gives us a chance to pay back the American taxpayer, preserves the jobs, and that's what we're trying to do.
Well, great. I didn't think you could answer that question. I just asked that to point out that the minority has asked for an administration witness for quite a while. It would be helpful to know what the administration has planned, but we're unable to ascertain that, and I appreciate that's not your job to answer that question, but it's just difficult from our side if we don't know what the administration has planned, and I hope that we have some hearings coming up where we can find that out. I would ask, though, there've been some talk that AIG, in its effort to come back, is undercutting competition, offering insurance products under value, and making it difficult for competition. Who are your main competitors?
Domestically, ACE, well, let me just, ACE, Zurich, AXA, Allianz, Travelers. I would also say that a number of organizations have looked at that issue. The GAO looked at it, and they commented on it the last time I was here before Congress. The Federal Reserve has commissioned its own study of that, and we found we just don't do that. We don't put the federal money into the property casualty businesses and then use that as a competitive advantage. And I think any analysis that's been done would support that. Brokers have done that same kind of analysis, and there doesn't appear to be much validity to it.
And so any allegation that is taking place has no basis in reality?
I don't believe so. You know, it's a very competitive marketplace, and like most areas of business, people fight tooth and nail. But in terms of us appropriately or inappropriately pricing our product, we do not do that. What I don't want to do is have this company get out of the mess that it's in and then find out that the book of business that we have is underpriced and we've got insurance issues. We're just not going to do that.
Right. Well, you can see why some might be concerned about that, though, whenever government is backing someone. We've seen it with the GSEs. There's simply less care taken.
Yes, no, I understand it 100%. I would, again, I'd say if you look at the results, the early results of the GAO study, or some work done by the Federal Reserve, or work done by brokers, I think you'll find little, if any, validity to that issue.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.